Well, hello everybody. Thank you for joining together here tonight. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Bazgrim, and I have been following the development of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen for over 3 years now, since 2016, and I'm joined tonight by just a few of my friends, and I will introduce them to you in just a moment. Because since the inception of Pantheon, it has always been about bringing people from all walks of life together and overcoming difficulties. And the mantra that you may have heard is community matters. And even already among just the followers of the development process, I have myself seen many meaningful friendships be formed. So when we heard that Brad Aradune McQuaid, the originator of Pantheon and the champion of our community, had passed away unexpectedly on November 18th, we knew that we had to unite and we had to come together to mourn and to honor him. So we are gathering here tonight simply as fans and as friends and as a community in hopes that if we band together, that there's at least some hope that we can persevere through this incredible difficulty, just like Brad has often told us to do in the worlds that he has created. So here tonight, I have Yarnilla from the Voices of Terminus. Yarn, if you'd like to say hello.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
We also have Minus from Pantheon Plus.
Hey, guys.
And, of course, Nathan Napalm from the Nathan Napalm channel.
Hello, everybody. Honored to be here.
Yes, guys. Personally, thank you for being here with me, because I did not want to have to do this alone. I know that things are kind of raw for a lot of people still, and because the events of the past week are nothing short of unbelievable, and because of course Brad is not only known for Pantheon, so whatever brings you here tonight, however you knew him, I trust that through the sharing of our memories that we can all at least start the process of healing together, because everybody processes things differently, and so however you need to do that tonight, please feel free. We are not here to theorize or to worry. We are here to honor Brad, to learn from him, and then through that maybe somehow figure out a way to start following the trail that he had blazed. Brad was an extraordinary man that lived an extraordinary life, the magnitude of which few people have seen. Many only dream of it. But it was still a life that was cut tragically short. So the news has sent shockwaves throughout the industry and throughout the communities that he helped form. And particularly, I can say that for us in the Pantheon community, who admired him and watched him pour his passion into this project, I think it's safe to say that this is pretty much the worst possible news that we could have gotten. And so it's understandable to be shaken by this, because the repercussions of losing somebody who touched so many lives and who could have touched so many more lives, it's unimaginable. So the beauty of that, though, is that when you have that degree of impact on people's lives, each person that you then touch has an opportunity to then go on and take what they have learned from him and use that and pass it on to the people around them. And that creates a very positive rippling effect that continues indefinitely, far beyond any one life. And I think that in order for us to live up to that potential, it is important for us to first just reflect on how profound of a life he did live. And so with that in mind, Minus, would you lead us in taking a look back at Brad's life and career?
Yeah, thanks, Baz. Guys, I'm going to stumble over some words tonight. Nathan said it. Super honored to have this opportunity. Anyone who's watched anything I've ever done, you guys know I don't like to script. I don't like to plan out what I'm going to say. I'm kind of off the cuff, but I'm going to tell you guys tonight I'm going to be reading some of my thoughts because I don't think I'd be able to keep it together if I didn't have something to keep me on track. So I'm going to read through this. It's sort of Brad, and I'm going to wrap it up a little bit with a story and how he's affected me and I think us. So Baz, thank you so much for giving me this time to do this. So bear with me, guys. Send out those hugs. I'm going to need them. Here we go. I don't often write a script when I talk to the Pantheon community. I find that typically I'm much better at talking off the cuff and letting it go from there. That said, emotionally, it's been a tough few days for me. However, given the privilege to discuss Brad's history, I wanted to ensure that I was accurate and 100% correct in the things I was going to say. Furthermore, for those that know me, know how emotional I am. I can think that writing these out, being factual and sharing a story would be a way to keep me on track and not take up your whole day. So first fact, Brad made the greatest and most impactful game of all time. Look it up. It's a fact. Just search it online, and if you come across a site that lists anything other than that, go ahead and delete your history and never go back there, because to me, nothing has ever been so impactful. Nothing has ever meant so much, and without that game, I'm not sure I'd even be a gamer. The game I'm speaking of course, is War Wizard. No, I'm just kidding. That's not right. But War Wizard was important. For those that don't know, it was the first game Brad ever created in 1989, designed solely with his free time with a friend, Steve Clover. War Wizard and the work on its sequel is actually what drew him into the attention of John Smedley, who worked for Sony. And it was that attention and recognition on his work with War Wizard that Brad would be tapped to lead the industry into one of the most impactful progressions it's ever seen in EverQuest. With Brad's guidance and a team of visionaries, Sony looked to take the mud and pen and paper setting and find a way to connect players all over the world. While there were some games attempting to do the same thing, like Ultima Online, nothing was as immersive, revolutionary, community-driven as the vision that EverQuest was. Starting as the lead programmer, by the time Brad launched and became the producer and lead designer of the project, he worked with a team that was not only new together, but a lot of them were actually new within the industry. And it's funny because that lack of experience actually helped him think outside the box, something kind of required when you're creating a new genre, so to speak. Brad himself said with the lack of knowledge made them, and I quote, fearless, end quote, and to adapt at trial and error. The next part he said they quote, they didn't know what would or wouldn't work, which is an absolutely phenomenal way to develop. That fearless attitude would lead to the launch of EverQuest in March of 99, a game that lives on to this day 20 years later. Longer than some of the people's lives in here. Not only does it live on, but anyone who spent time in Norrath can recall vivid memories with friends, foes, and some of the world's most epic NPC characters. Brad created a massive, living, breathing world. One where we could escape and be whatever it is we wanted to be. We needed friends to survive. Experience for the world. We needed to form bonds, schedule events, set aside our real lives to adventure in what I like to call our hero skins. With all of its success and helping create such a massive success, it became increasingly clear that what he truly loved was making worlds, making games. While people in his place would have collected a paycheck and loved their job, it wasn't the same as running a successful game, as it was creating it. Brad's been known to have said many times, and I quote, "I want to make worlds, not games," end quote. Well, I can't say the first time Brad uttered those words in public. I think it was always within his soul, within his heart, and that creating these worlds and this experience with his supporters and friends in tow. It wasn't that, it was that mindset that led him to his next project, Vanguard. Now, with any story of greatness comes times of difficulty, and Vanguard's vision was one filled with challenges and difficulty. Brad had a vision to create an even larger world, to expand on the ideas he had and go even bigger. I think for those that are unfamiliar with Vanguard, maybe they hear of only the negative. That perhaps the one key thing important to note when talking about Brad, however, is the key phrase vision. Because Vanguard had it in spades, but the industry was changing rapidly. Originally, Microsoft was going to fund the game, bring it to life on consoles, pledge a great deal of money and confidence in Brad and his new team in Sigil. However, the industry changed, and so did Microsoft's vision of this future, and in 2006, they pulled it. Brad didn't want to give up, though. And this is more important. Brad did not want to give up, and he turned back to a company that he had left for support. Now, unfortunately, that company rushed the game out. Unfortunately, the game was put out in a way that it wasn't quite ready for the world to see. Players would struggle to properly run the game, and while they worked hard on stabilizing the game environment, making fixes, and trying to technically finish broken systems on the fly, the MMORPG world around them was just being dominated and changed at the same time. And not all the fans of the game had the patience to hold on. It's often said that the biggest downfall of Vanguard was that Brad was perhaps too ambitious. Perhaps his vision was too great. And although the game would be shut down, there are fans to this day that speak of the scale and the vision of its world. No one can argue that Vanguard failed as a whole, but Brad's vision was still there, and his ability to build a memorable world was still strong. I can say that in my life, I have learned the most from my failures, much more than my successes. And while Brad would eventually return to work on EverQuest for a short time, I felt like he needed more, just like in 2002, when he started work on Vanguard in the first place. Enter Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. There's a quote by an individual, and anybody who knows me knows I'm horrible at pronouncing names, and there's some people that are probably in chat right now that I've messed your name up, so I'm not even going to try to say this guy's name. But the quote is, "Pain teaches you more than pleasure. Failure teaches you more than success. Poverty teaches you more than prosperity. And adversity teaches you more than comfort." End quote. How we choose to measure those around us, whether by their failure or success, is often more important to look at how we react to both. Brad's passion for Vanguard was massive. His heart was in it, his vision was there, but it just didn't work out. While some would label that moment of his career as damning, I look at it much differently. You can see it greatly in how a thing like Pantheon even came to be. You can see what he learned. You can see what kind of team he knew he needed. And you can see how important it was to him that this game was done right. Sadly, something many game companies just don't focus on these days. Pantheon is a combination of success, of missteps, of failure, and all the lessons learned of and in between. In 2014, Brad formed Visionary Realms, and even with all the challenges of a volatile industry around him, a genre that was most had said or seeing its dying breath, the odds were stacked against him. His vision stayed strong, and Brad wanted to go back to creating worlds, creating community, and a place for all of us to live that other life. It wasn't always easy. From the failed Kickstarter to bringing together a new team and re-strategizing completely what Pantheon is as of today, he continued to fight for his dream, for our dream of what it was to discover a challenging, breathtaking world with our friends beside us. From then until now, Pantheon has created an amazing community and is 100% due to Brad's vision of community matters. The only reason that I am actually here today talking to you is that community matters phrase. At the heart of Pantheon was bringing back a shared experience, one that most old school fans and even current fans had felt lost to the current kings of the genre. Brad was quoted saying, and I quote, "The social component is what keeps you coming back," end quote. The social component, although we're waiting for the launch of Pantheon, can already be seen in such an amazing community, developing, supporting, funding, and evangelizing this game. From unique classes with true identities to sprawling, wonderful world with hidden mysteries, vibrant life, the creative and game-changing takes on races of the world, Pantheon is shaping up to be everything we wanted from a spiritual successor of the old days. Make no mistake that it is all of us, from developer to content creator to tester to backers to fans who own a small part in Pantheon. Brad created this vision for us to experience together, and you can see it in every member of his team who shares that same passion. The team at Visionary Realms set forth, trying to explain quickly, this is what the game would live by. An awareness that content is king, a requirement that classes have identity, a belief that games economies, that items matter, a commitment to style of play and understanding that truly challenging gameplay is rewarding, an expectation with risk comes greater reward, an understanding that player involvement is required, that actions have consequences, positive to be rewarded, and anything else not to be. A belief that meaningful character progression will always involve a player increasing in power and prestige, and a mindset that the degree of downtime should be part of the game to ensure we have time to form those social bonds. A belief that the immersive world requires intelligent inhabitants, an understanding that faction and alignment are integral to the world and its citizens, a commitment to creating a world where focus on cooperative play will attract those that seek a challenge, a belief in the greatest sense of accomplishment is when it is shared and earned, an agreement that player levels should be both meaningful and memorable, and last but not least, an assertion that player versus environment should be more than just NPCs. It should be engaging the world. We're all here today because we know what happened on November 18th, 2019. We lost a hero, a friend, and a creative genius, and someone who, whether directly or indirectly, affected all of our lives in a really big way. You didn't need to play EverQuest or Vanguard to feel Brad's impact, because the online RPG, there are pieces in every one you've ever experienced. The foundations put in place will never go away. When I heard the news, I felt a sort of shock. To be honest, I still feel that. It still doesn't feel real. I mourned his passing as much as any fan could. Someone who felt connected to him. But in mourning and remembering, I found so much to celebrate. Thinking back to the endless nights in EverQuest, discovering Pantheon with all my friends that I've made due to it, learning to become a content creator, and knowing that he supported me, a nobody, because he cared. The more I dealt with thinking about Brad's passing, the more I realized I was engulfed in his legacy. The more I missed him, the more I realized that he would live forever across millions of gamers' memories and hearts. Every time I got sad, I had the opportunity to smile because he gave that to all of us. And what's the best part? He's still not done. Pantheon was his dream, his vision, his passion, and as I said before, the truth is, I said was his passion, but it should be is. Brad gave everything he could to this project, and luckily for us, he put together a team that I have 100% faith in can finish his journey so that we can create more memories moving forward. My last little piece here is I just want to share a quick personal story, and then I'm going to stop talking. When I started Pantheon Plus, well before the reveal of our initial website to the world, we started to hype the game, and we did so with a couple of videos. And one day I saw the quote on my screen on Twitter that Brad McQuaid has followed you. I was like a school kid calling to my friends and texting people, the legendary Brad McQuaid followed me. I was terrified to message him directly, because when someone follows you, you're capable of doing that. I was terrified. Because I was just honored that he was following me. Eventually, I would reach out, and he was always incredible to me. Absolutely incredible. One particular back and forth stood out to me, and I wanted to share it. I had messaged him to tell him how much the community appreciates him. This was in September. There was a part of the community that was really getting impatient, and his response was great. He said, and I quote, "I always tell the newer team members that, hey, if we don't have people up in arms about something, then our community isn't passionate about the game, and the game is in trouble. Nothing is worse than apathy. I'll take nasty trolls any day over apathy and silence." End quote. He had explained to me that he's been through all this before, but a lot of his team members have not. And he always told them it will get worse. But the love the community gives that team motivates them way past the negative. I could tell in this conversation that when he said community matters, it was a way of life, not just as gamers in the community, but for his team, which he cares deeply for. So with that, I'll leave you with this. Brad has given us so much, and now it is our turn to give back to him, to his vision, to his dream, to his family, to VR, and to each other. It's our turn to help in every way we can by supporting the development Pantheon so that we can all log on and create more memories. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Baz.
Thank you, Minus, for that. That was excellent. Yarn, you were one of the first people in the Pantheon community to decide that the world needed to know more about Pantheon and that it was partially the community's responsibility to help with that. And by doing that, you were one of the first people to, in the Pantheon community anyway, to have met Brad in person because of Pantheon. And I know that was, in fact, the picture of that is up on screen right now. And I know that was a special time for you. So would you mind talking a little bit about that and just giving your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Baz. Yeah, so this was back in 2017. I heard that Brad was going to Cologne to the games convention, and we were writing back and forth, and they said, hey, Brad's going to be there, and do you plan to go down there? You can meet up. They're going to do a get together. So I was overjoyed to get the chance to go. But before I get into all of that, a funny story that kind of has been seen on this. The T-shirt he's wearing actually traveled to the United States and back to Germany twice before I got to give it to him in Cologne in August 2017 personally. So that was a really nice little treat that we had. I sent it over to the US, it came back, and I tried it twice. I finally got to give it to him in person, so that was very memorable for me. So I went down with Cologne with my wife. She was pregnant at the time as well with my daughter. And so we went down to Cologne, and it was just me and my wife and Brad and David Reitman. Basically, it was just the four of us. We had a sit down, and I got to sit down with Brad for 2.5 hours and just talk about anything and everything. And it was unexpected. It's me just being there with Brad, with the missus, and he's such a passionate, open guy. He's so forthcoming. He's engaging. He's so down to earth. It was an amazing time that I had sitting there with him, and I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared to. He just went off the bat and said, "Hey, you got any questions you want to ask me? Any burning questions you want to ask me? Go ahead and ask." And it's still I'm still trying to process all of this, because my last engagement with Brad, believe it or not, was on Saturday via Twitter. I chatted with him on Saturday, and I'm still processing. I still can't quite get around that he's passed, so please bear with me. The one thing that really stood out for me, believe it or not, it's a small story now about my missus and her 15 minutes of alone time with Brad. So I forgot my son's t-shirt, my son's VOT t-shirt we had made for him, for Brad to sign. So I went and had to go into town to the park house to go get it. And so Brad had 15 minutes of time to go and sit down with my wife and talk to her about MMOs and games and everything. And Brad asked her about EverQuest. And, you know, if she ever played EverQuest. And my wife turned around and said, yeah, she tried it out, but she thought it was god-awful. You know, so and she didn't know at the time as well that who Brad was and everything, like. And so I came back and I sat down and I said, so you know, what happened? What do you guys talk about? And then, you know, they both shared what they were talking about, EverQuest, and my wife shared, and, you know, her response and everything. And I was shocked that my wife had the honest, you know, the honesty to say that it was, you know, that it sucked, but, you know, she didn't know who he was. And my wife recently, on his passing, when we found out about it, she said, you know, I didn't know who the guy was, and my wife doesn't have a Twitter account. So she's asked me now to set up a Twitter account because she wants to pay her respects as well. Because the first time she got to engage with him, she told him that she found EverQuest god-awful. And, you know, she feels pain with saying that to him. And she wants to go on at Twitter, pay respects to him, and tell him that she will do everything and anything, and she will play Pantheon in respect to him. Yeah, it was an amazing time, Baz, meeting him. He was so open. You know, I've always been starstruck around Brad. I remember the first time he jumped into our one of our early shows. He jumped into chat, you know, and yeah, I think it was him and Jopper. They did a dev stream, I think, and we did a post recap, and then he jumped in with Jopper and engaged with the community for a bit. And I was, you know, starstruck because, you know, similar to Minus, you know, we were early adapters of the game, supporters of the game, but, you know, we were nobodies, you know, and it struck me. But I was, you know, I'm so honored and happy to have met him. And I'm so glad that you guys as well got to sit down back at the end of 2017 when we did our end of year show. I reached out to Kilson. You guys remember this? And we wanted to do something special for the community. So we reached out to Kilson to see if we could get somebody on from the dev team to come sit down with us on that. And, you know, it turned out to be Brad who joined us. And, you know, it's still shocking, but yeah, he is such an amazing guy. He was so down to earth, so passionate, like you guys have already said. He's so passionate, and he has that magical aura to draw people in and to inspire everybody. And Community Matters has always had meaning with everything Brad has touched, be it EverQuest, be it Vanguard, and now with Pantheon. The community is even stronger than it was back then. You know, we have such an amazing community. We have so many people doing content out there, and we're constantly together. We're constantly helping each other. So yeah, it's still very hard to process, but thanks, Baz.
Yeah, that reflects the opportunities that I have had to meet with him in person as well, Yarn. In him just being very approachable, because I think by all rights, if he wanted to, he could have been like, you know what? I am a god. I've created worlds, and he could have nothing to do with people, but he realized that is not in line with what's really important, which is being among the community and nurturing the community. And so that's why he was so involved. And at like this picture right here, actually, at PAX East, he just seemed, at first glance, he seems like just any other middle-aged dad that likes playing video games, you know? But at the same time, in the same breath, you saw in that picture, when he speaks, people listen. And because he just has so much wisdom to share, and it's captivating. So, and I, as I've been watching the internet kind of erupt this past week, I've been pleasantly surprised, actually, in the amount of people that have similar experiences. Like, he seems to have been so consistent over the years with wanting to meet people in person, and having so many people have had one-on-one interactions with somebody who's so influential, yet at the same time walks among everyone else and wants to be with them and talk to them. And it's very unusual. But then even at the same time, for the people who have never met him, I've seen, you can tell just in the tweets and the outpouring of love that has been going on, you can see how deep of an effect that he has had on people, even if they never met him, even if they just played a game that he had a part in making. And that's because he dedicated his life to changing other people's lives by bringing people together. And I feel like when those resulting friendships have such deep meaning for you, that when you lose the person who ultimately caused it in the first place, it kind of feels like you're losing a little bit of yourself in a way, I think. And so again, it's a burden that we as a community must share. But so with that in mind, I think that is a good segue to you, Nate, because I know that you have been watching social media and such very closely in the forums, and reading the many touching stories that people have come out in regards to Brad and his games. So I think now would be a good time if you would like to share some of those, and even your own story if you would like.
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on just a few of what I felt was very powerful statements from all over different parts of the gaming industry, as well as just gamers that I felt had very profound stories or things that they said within the context of what has happened. Before I get to that, though, everything you guys have talked about is so true. Brad McQuaid felt like he just felt like another gamer that was a friend that you could talk to, and I've followed him since I graduated high school, and at the beginning days of EverQuest, and followed his career and his projects. Always looking for, I was super pumped of Vanguard back when there was information coming out for it. Everything he touched, EQ2, Star Wars Galaxies, I was a big fan of them all the way through. So very similar to the story that mine is shared, when I just decided one day, because I was a fan of Brad McQuaid, that I was going to make a video about Pantheon, about his new project. And I released a video to YouTube. The first, I had 129 subscribers at the time. I released a video about the game and just kind of generalize. It's a horrible video, but a generalized view of the game. And somehow Brad McQuaid seen it. He commented on it. I didn't even believe it. I thought it was just like somebody that, used his name. And then he followed me on Twitter, and I was super excited. And I was like showing my wife and running around and texting everybody, and was super excited. Just couldn't believe that I had any kind of contact with the legendary man like Brad McQuaid that I had looked up to for my entire adult life. So he was a great man, and I never wanted to bother him too much because I knew he was busy. I did have a few conversations with him, especially when I felt like he was going through tough times with the project, things that happened, and there was some negative feedback on certain decisions, etc. I would reach out to him, just tell him I loved him. He was always quick to tell me he loved me and he loved the community, and he always understood when people were upset about something too. That's what he didn't like. Even though it was his baby, it'd be real easy to take that personally. He didn't. He would attack it head on, like a man, like a very strong man would. So anyway, let's move forward with this, because I do want to touch on some awesome things I've seen from around the internet. Some of these I'm going to say who said it, some of them I won't, mainly because, much like mine is, some of these I can't pronounce. So this one from Twitter says, "Your legacy will last forever because of the 3 decades of dreams you made come true for so many people. Rest easy, Brad." Thronefast needs a statue, the fallen hero. All knew his name, but very few had the honor to know the man. Aradune, maker of worlds, has left this one, but will never be forgotten. Wish I'd had a chance to meet you. From Black Boa Gaming, tonight in the middle of my stream, I heard the terrible news that Brad McQuaid, the creator of EverQuest, Vanguard, and Pantheon, had passed away. This is a man who did so much for the MMORPG genre, and the news immediately sent me bursting into tears. From someone in our community, you're Gator Bait. I literally feel like I've been kicked in the gut and had the wind knocked out of me. May Brad's family, friends, and colleagues find peace during this difficult time. May Brad be with our Heavenly Father and getting ready to enjoy all of eternity playing his favorite games. From John Smedley of Sony Online, he worked with several times. It kills me to even write this, but Brad McQuaid has passed away. Brad was an amazingly talented creator, and EverQuest wouldn't exist without his genius. He will be missed. Boogie of YouTube fame, who did a wonderful interview of him back in the earlier days of Pantheon. I am devastated to hear Brad McQuaid has passed. He created the most influential game I have ever played, EverQuest. He allowed me to interview him once and remained a friend after that. He was a visionary who knew what he loved and loved to share it. From the EverQuest team, we are devastated to hear the passing of Brad McQuaid and are eternally grateful for the EverQuest universe he was instrumental in creating. His effect on all of us is immeasurable and life-changing. Continue your great quest, Aradune. Corey Lefevre from VR. In shock of hearing of Brad's passing, my condolences to his family and loved ones. I owe the bulk of my career and many of my gaming memories with friends to him and his projects. It's hanging out with him that I'm going to miss the most. Good night, at Aradune. You're missed already. Chris Perkins, Joppa of Visionary Realms. Aradune, you never gave up on your dream of making epic fantasy worlds. It is not a light legacy you leave to us. It is one of relentless conviction, inspiring us to the core to carry on. I am truly grateful to you for everything, Brad. I will miss you dearly, my friend. Jim Lee, who streamed Pantheon and done artwork for EverQuest, and said, Brad was a true visionary and inspired me with his passion for MMOs. My involvement with DCUO was a direct result of my time spent with Brad. I will miss his camaraderie and his genius. Rest in peace, Aradune. Battle Axe Theater. This is hard to take in. Brad brought gaming to life for us. MMORPGs wouldn't exist the same if it wasn't for him. He will be very deeply missed and remain within our hearts. Fallen, but not forgotten. a hero to so many in the gaming in the gaming industry. Rest well, Aradune. Benjamin Dean of Visionary Rounds. Missing you already, Aradune. Thank you for the years of entertainment, the memories, the mentoring, and most of all, the friendship. Rest in peace, friend. I also wanted to share a couple of other things found across the internet in articles and things like that. MMORPG developer Ralph Koster, who actually was also worked at SOE as an executive, said, shocked and gutted to hear that Brad McQuaid, Aradune, has passed away. A big-hearted guy who loved games and the worlds he built. So many memories of design discussions with him over the years. He was so proud of Pantheon. Way too soon. Rest in peace, Brad. You will be missed. We also had a beautiful piece I wanted to share with you guys from Ben Dean. It is with deep regret and profound sadness that we share that Brad McQuaid, Chief Creative Officer of Visionary Rounds, has passed away in his home. Brad was a visionary and mentor, an artist, a trailblazer, a friend, a husband, a father. He touched thousands of lives with his dreams and concepts. He changed the landscape of video games forever. He will be deeply missed and forever remembered, in life and in Pantheon. Thank you, Brad, for bringing us together through your worlds. Rest in peace, Aradune. I did want to also share another clip I found from Vice, where they're quoted as saying, "There is no World of Warcraft without EverQuest, and no EverQuest without McQuaid." I would have never learned to type if not for McQuaid. I was 15 years old when Sony Online Entertainment released EverQuest. It was the first time I needed to pay for an ongoing subscription to a video game, and I had to beg my parents to use their credit card. By happenstance, I landed on the right server with the right group of people and made friends that helped get me through high school. I had played Ultima Online in various MUDs, but nothing hit me quite like EverQuest did. It had consequences that seemed downright mean in a modern context. Dying meant you lost experience and possibly an entire level. I had to learn to type, really focus on it so I could communicate with the people I met online. I played entirely too much, too late into the night, and learned the perils of gaming addiction firsthand. EverQuest was a formative experience for me, and for a generation of players who were born at the right time and were lucky enough to enter the world McQuaid helped build. Later, World of Warcraft took EverQuest's ideas, sanded off the rough edges, and proved MMOs could be a mass market success. I loved WoW, but EverQuest will always be the first game I played too much. The first game that made me so angry I quit. The first game where I made friends I still talk to, almost 2 decades later. I'm thankful for that. McQuaid, John Smedley, and everyone else at Sony Online Entertainment were pioneers. He will be missed. And I know I'm going over a lot of things, but I did want to also touch on a few things. These are people in our community of Pantheon, and some of this was really beautiful, so I wanted to share it. He was a good man, a legend as a creator, and an amazing father and husband. He did everything he could for his family and was so kind. He never missed church and always prayed with our whole family. Rest in peace, Brad. May you be happy in your world up in the sky. I was in my mid-30s when I first got the first-hand written with permanent marker CD-ROM for the EverQuest beta in the mail. I installed it on my hunk of junk computer and waited for an email saying the beta server was up. I logged in, created a cleric, and was simply awestruck at the fantasy world I had entered. We had never seen anything like this before. I was in the depths of depression at this time in my life. A traumatic brain injury in the army had rewired my brain chemistry. My world had been turned topsy-turvy. Meridian 59 had helped some, but EverQuest helped set me free from the darkness that invaded my life. Not therapists, not medications. EverQuest and the people I chatted with who treated me like a person. Someone I had raided with and killed gods in the game with died after a long illness, and though I'd never met this person, I cried like a baby. It's sometimes still, even with the care and medications, hard to feel much of anything as far as emotional attachment and love. But I feel the loss of Brad McQuaid in the depths of my soul. I did want to also share Chris from Visionary Rounds, the CEO, had there was some discussion going. People were afraid that the Pantheon project would not make it. And I did want to share for anybody who has that question. I think it's been answered in chat already, but I wanted to quote him as he said, "Out of respect for Brad's dream and the community's strong desire to experience Brad's vision, the team is moving forward with gusto. You have our deepest appreciation for your support." So I wanted to kind of end my segment with that. That, guys, this is the saddest thing of all. The thing that's had me crying like a baby for the past few days is that this is Brad's final world. This is it. So I think we should all work very hard to make sure that it happens, and that we should really just push forward as hard as we can to make sure that they get as much funding as needed to make this Brad's final vision come to life. Because unfortunately, we thought we were going to get to enter this world with Aradune. Unfortunately, he'll be there in spirit, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. But this is our last chance to see his vision. And as I've said many times, Pantheon was what he's always wanted to create, and it's happening now. So that's all I have to say, guys. Please do everything you can to support Visionary Realms and in this project, because it's much more. It was already a passion project. I don't even know what next level of that is, but that's what it is now.
Yeah, thank you, Nate, for that, because that's a really good point. I had mentioned that on Twitter before, that Pantheon is an important. It has always been an important game, but this just makes it so much more important, even when I didn't even think that was possible. But it is. That's very true. So thank you for that. And I would also like to kind of bounce off what you were saying in for me personally too. I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried like a baby a couple days ago, which is something that has not happened in many years, which is kind of strange. It's not, though. It wasn't all sadness, though. It was just the not despair, not feeling like all hope was lost, but it's just the gravity of the situation is kind of overwhelming. For me personally, I mean, some of you here know this, but I never get tired of sharing how EverQuest was a game that I started playing when I was 5 years old, and I feel very fortunate to have had that opportunity to have been born into a family that loved the game, and we all played it together. And through that, like so many of the stories that you have said, I mean, that's how I learned how to type, but I learned so many other things too by going through my formative years in a virtual world, surrounded by family and surrounded by people across the world. It had such a deep and eternal effect on me and the way that I think. And again, in the response video that I had made on YouTube a couple of days, I spoke about how fortunate I feel to have even had the opportunity. Never in my wildest dreams as a kid would I had never even had the thought that there would be a day that I would be face to face with him, thanking him for playing a part in shaping me into who I am today. Like, that is just a crazy thought. Because EverQuest, one of the main things that I told him is that EverQuest taught me perseverance, because as many people know, EverQuest was a very grindy game sometimes, and it was not always fun, yet you kept going. You always came back for more because you knew that eventually you would get the reward that you wanted, and the satisfaction from that made it all worth it. All the pain was temporary, and the reward at the end was what it was all about. And that's just one example of the sort of lessons that I learned from EQ, in that I feel is very applicable to everyday life. You can scale that up or down to anything that you're trying to accomplish in life, and it applies. And I genuinely feel like those that had the opportunity to play Brad's games, whether it be EverQuest, Vanguard, whatever, that you have an advantage if you played those games and went on those quests and stuff that forced you to think that way. And there are other things as well. Things like cooperation is a big one too, that you don't have to go through things alone. It makes things a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable if you do it with other people. And I could go on and on and on about the ways that that EQ has shaped me, and so I won't go on too long. But in honor of all that, the sweatshirt that I am wearing today, I don't know if anybody of you noticed, this is a sweatshirt that has the first EverQuest character that I ever played on it. This is Lenamar, the High Elf Paladin. And my aunt and uncle gave this to me as a Christmas gift when I don't even know how young I was. I had to have been 9 or 10 years old, and yes, it still fits me. Now, I will say that they intentionally made it very big for me at the time. I was swimming in it at the time. But yes, it does still fit. So that's why I'm wearing this, because this sweatshirt's very it's very special to me. Some of the memories that I treasure the most from my entire life are playing EverQuest with my family, and our Christmases. That wasn't just that one year. Our Christmases always revolved around EQ in some way, and that, you know, we would, in addition to the real gifts that we would give each other in real life, we would be getting each other gifts in EverQuest. A lot of the I was twinked out and so spoiled. A lot of the armor that I had gotten was a result of family members that had gone to other parts of the world and got it and came and gave it to me, and that was my favorite part of Christmas. That was opening up the envelope, and they printed out the item descriptions, and I would read through them. I still have them. I should have gotten them. I would look through the envelope and just be like, just beaming, looking at all the things, and then I would go and log in, and they would already be in my character. It's like, again, I could go on for hours and hours of things like that I still remember vividly, and whenever I am having a tough day or whatever, those are things that I can fall back on, that I can think on, because those are memories that I will always have and think very fondly of. And again, you can all trace it back to Brad, as well as, though I should mention John Smedley as well, who I see he was in chat at least at one point. I think he still is. So, man, thank you for being here. I know how hard it has been for you particularly through this. So I'm glad that you have chosen to share part of your evening with us. Because wow, yeah, it's profound. Also, one thing that I wanted to share that I had posted this on Facebook the other day too, when I was just kind of reflecting on Brad in my on my own, and I had come across the eulogy that Brad had written for Keith Parkinson. For those of you that don't know, Keith was an artist for EverQuest and Vanguard. And he sadly passed away during the development of Vanguard, and after that, Brad, who was a good friend of him, had written a eulogy for Keith. And one thing, again, like I was saying, how like I generally don't get too emotional, but this has been a very emotional week for me. And one of the first things that really hit me hard, for some reason, it just got to me, was and I'll read the excerpt from the eulogy, where it says there's one other painting that he didn't finish. He was going to paint Aradune Mathara for me one day. Not based on the amateur descriptions of him from stories I wrote as a child. Not based on the crude text descriptions of him from Sojourn or Toromud. Not based in low polygon plate mail like in EverQuest when he was supposed to be a ranger. No, I was finally going to see the real Aradune. Tall, proud, clad in green chainmail and dual-wielding fiery scimitars. One day, I'll sit with him in paradise and we'll brainstorm again, like in the old days, and figure out how Aradune really looks. So I'd like to think that that's what he is doing right now, what he enjoyed doing so much, is just brainstorming and using the magnificent mind that he had to dream up worlds and characters and stories, which he was so good at doing. And I don't know, that thought just, I don't know, it gets to me, man. Yarn, do you have any closing thoughts?
I just think, reflect back on all of this, what an impact his games have had, and what an impact EverQuest had on everything that came after. He is literally been responsible for impacting hundreds and thousands of lives in so many ways. Everybody has some story of, how EverQuest saved someone's life. There's so many stories out there, how it impacted people, how it, brought people together. And, it is important that we come together now as a community with the devs, and we help finish his final ultimate testament to the gaming industry. It's very important now that we help them get through this hard time, help each other get through this hard time, and push forward and bring Pantheon to the light.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you, because Brad did have a lot more work left to be done, and it's so not fair that he will not be able to feel the satisfaction of seeing it through. That's how it goes sometimes. But nevertheless, though, as you three have said, I would like to underscore that how very vital it is for the entire future of this type of the socially driven MMO that it's so important to all of us here and so many other people around the globe. It's so important that his influence not just end here. And so Pantheon must continue, and it will, as you have said. But as you can imagine, that's no small task. So I think in order for that to happen, yes, we need to share that burden across the community. A lot of it does fall on the shoulders of the team, but yes, at the same time, there is a big responsibility for the community to uplift them and support them, because what they're doing is important and historic to see it through, and in hopes of starting a chain reaction, and that who knows where it will go. So anything that you can do, if you're watching, anything, whatever you are capable and willing to do, I would just encourage you to do it. Whether it's donating to the game, whether it's just sharing news about the game with your friends or anybody that you come across, whether it be, like Nate said, to just send an encouraging message to a developer. Those little things, each little thing plays a part. And so even if you just do that, you can be confident that you're being part of the solution, because it's so much bigger than any one of us. It will take so many people joining together, each one person laying one brick after brick after brick, and then who knows where it will go. That's the beauty of community. So with that in mind, I think that will bring our time here tonight to a close. Before I go, I would just like to say personally, and I think I speak for the rest of us here, how deeply fortunate I feel to be a part of this amazing community. It is unlike anything that I have seen in any other game, and I have played a lot of games and been a part of a lot of communities, and a lot of good communities, because I have played other Brad's games, and he has a way of creating excellent communities of excellent people. But this is just on a whole nother level, and so I'm thankful every day to be a part of it, and the fact that you have chosen to join me in remembering such a legendary person. I would like to thank you for that, and also keep in mind to tomorrow that Yarn and the Voices of Terminus will be hosting Linda Brass Carlson, who is here in chat tonight. She will be on the Voices of Terminus show tomorrow. She is part of Visionary Realms, and at the same time, though, a long-term friend of Brad. And so I would encourage you to join them tomorrow to hear her thoughts and her sentiments, and just to continue to reminisce about Brad's career. So I hope you will join them for that. But in the meantime, please take care of each other and have a good night. Thank you.